Hi everyone, so welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me again. I just wanted to hop on. So this week is Bisexual Awareness Week, and I'm going to release this video on Bi Visibility Day, which is the 23rd of September, and I just wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about my experience with sexuality and kind of my story, and also share some of the myths that I know about and tell you why they're wrong. So this is the first time I've ever spoken kind of publicly, but also kind of more broadly about my own sexuality, so bear with me guys. I promise to try not to cry or get too angry about stupid things that people have said, and yeah, so not that many people in my circles and in my life actually know that much about my journey, but I wanted to share this because I thought, you know, it's always useful to have other people's stories, and you know, if this reaches somebody who is, you know, struggling with their own sexuality or is learning about themselves at the moment, and this is helpful for them, then that will be, you know, that will be good enough. So yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit about my story and what it means to me, and then we'll just go from there. So growing up in, what would have been the noughties, it was a very different time to now, even though it wasn't even that long ago. Like, I went through high school, finished high school in like 10 years ago, so yeah, even though that was only 10 years ago, it was a very different time, and I know people seem to forget that that's the case, but for me there was no representation of bisexual people, men or women. There was no real representation of what LGBT plus relationships look like, so there was no real education around, you know, what it looked like if you were a woman and you were in love with a woman, or if you were a man and you were in love with a man, and there was no discussions around that, whether that was kind of on social media, which was minimal at the time, or whether that was kind of formal education that was taking place at school. There was no relationship education, so none of that stuff around, you know, what a relationship looks like, for a start. Not very useful if you are struggling with your sexuality. So 100% praise the new laws that have come in to say that all schools have to educate students on relationships. I think it's an amazing thing. We're not trying to indoctrinate you all to become gay before everybody starts saying that, because I've seen a lot of people say that on Twitter, but what we are trying to educate is that there are gay people out there, there are people of different genders, there are people who experience relationships in different ways, and it's just about educating people about what they are. You know, it's okay if you love a woman, or it's okay if you love a man, it's okay if you don't love anyone, it's okay if you don't have any sexual attraction to anybody at all. So yeah, when I was growing up there was very minimal education around sexuality, and like I said, there was no representation. Like, there was no representation in the media. I don't really recall ever seeing any bisexual people. It would be rare to see a realistic representation of a gay person that wasn't a very broad stereotype, let alone a representation of something that people still struggle to understand. I mean, the first time I have any recollection of seeing a bisexual character on screen is, it can't have been that long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years, and it was from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. First off, amazing show, and Rosa Diaz, one of the characters played by Stephanie Beatrice, comes out as bisexual, and she is ousted almost by her family, and it's her kind of struggle to kind of accept that, and that was the first real experience I had seen of, you know, somebody being bisexual and very open to what that meant, and in a real way, not in the way that was like, oh, this person is, you know, a stereotype of this gender and this sexuality. It wasn't like that. It was really, really well handled. So 10 out of 10, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. If you haven't seen it, go watch it immediately. So then when I was growing up, I, you know, like didn't see any of these things, so didn't understand really how I felt about relationships or anything like that. And then I dated a lot of guys, like I dated men almost exclusively, and so I was like, okay, cool, I'm straight and that's fine. And I went to university and I met a lot of amazing people who opened my eyes to what sexuality was and what that meant for them, and I met a group of other girls who were who had slightly different sexualities to what I'd experienced. These girls, you know, some of them were bisexual, some of them were asexual. There was like some of them recognised as pansexual, so it really opened my eyes to what that really meant. And it didn't just mean like, you know, all of the myths and stereotypes that I've been used to seeing throughout the media and everything that as I was growing up. My actual coming out story isn't that exciting. Pretty much everybody that I told, it was just like an off-the-cuff comment. I was like, hey, I think this is how I am, and everybody was like, bit random, but okay, cool, we'll deal with it. And I have a very supportive network of people. Even a lot of them found it difficult to grasp and to get their head around immediately. I think, you know, even as a relatively well supported white woman, I found it really difficult, so I can imagine that there's a lot of people that have much more difficult stories than I do. But mine was, you know, even in my own circles, I haven't opened up to everybody, and I haven't told everybody that, you know, I'm bisexual, but because not everybody is accepting of it yet, and not everybody does understand what that looks like in reality. And one of the really crazy things actually about my coming out story is that I didn't come out until I was 23, which is quite, well, I say it's old, it's not old, but a lot of people will know that what their sexuality is, you know, before university age. So a lot of the people that I've met since through the LGBT community have told me all about, you know, how they came out when they were 15, or, you know, they knew that they were gay, or they knew that they were bisexual when they were 12, which is incredible. Obviously I've heard stories of people that haven't come out until they're like 80. Again, great, you know, do whatever you want. Your story is your story at the end of the day. But yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know when I was 12, I didn't know when I was 15, I didn't know when I was 18. Like, I didn't know who I was when I was 18, so I absolutely didn't think that I would ever get to a place where I was like, you know, this is who I am and this is what my sexuality is. So since it's Bi Visibility Week, day, you know, whatever it is, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the myths so that everybody can understand a little bit better kind of what it means to be bisexual and you know, what it means to be a part of that community. So the first myth that I would just like to shut right down is that bisexuality isn't real. And it's 2020, we know sexuality is fluid, okay? You can be bisexual, you can be gay, you can be whatever you want, you can be pansexual, you can recognise yourself in whatever way you want. And I would just like to firstly say that A, bisexuality is real. Don't let anybody tell you it isn't. And B, it's okay to explore that as well. Like, it's okay to explore sexualities. And the next one I want to shut that down is that bisexual people apparently are sexually attracted, or they fancy every single person they ever meet. No. Just no. That is absolutely not true. So if your friend is bisexual, the likelihood is they probably don't fancy you. No offense, you're not that great. But if you were a straight woman, you're a straight man, you don't fancy everybody. You're not in love with every single person that you meet of the opposite sex. You're just not. So why people think that, you know, if you're bisexual, you're in love with everybody, not 100% sure why. Because nobody assumes that about straight women or straight men, for example. Another myth that I've heard a lot, and I think this comes from the difficulty around the term bisexual, is that bisexuals are only attracted to two genders, and that's not true. Well, sometimes it might be true, sometimes it isn't true, but in general, a lot of people, and the majority of people that I've met through kind of the LGBT community, understand that bisexuality means that you could be attracted to two or more genders, and that's usually what that phrase means, bisexual, rather than, you know, you only accept men or women. There's, you know, we all know that there's a lot of kind of different genders, and gender is also a fluid concept. So yeah, being bisexual doesn't necessarily mean that you only fancy men or women, and also alongside that, it doesn't have to be 50-50. So, you know, you might be more attracted to, if there was a room full of 100 men and 100 women, you might be attracted to more of the women than you are of the men, or you might be attracted to more of the men than you are of the women. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you would be still be able to recognise and identify yourself as bisexual. And lastly, the final myth that I want to just shut down is that it's just a phase. No, it's not a phase. People can explore their sexuality, that's fine, but people aren't saying lightly that they're bisexual. And there's an assumption that if you're bisexual, at some point you are either gay or lesbian. That's just where you're going to end up, and that is 100% not true. I'm not really sure how to tell you any more than that. It's just not true. It's not a phase. Accept those people, accept that they understand what they're telling you, you know, accept that they know what it is that they are, accept that they know their own sexuality, and be supportive of those people. And I'm just going to wrap it up now, because I don't think I've ever said the word bisexual so many times in such a short period of time. So I am done talking about myself and talking about the myths, and I hope this video was useful to you. So I just wanted to flag, you know, number one, love is love. Number two, be supportive of those people around you that are struggling with their own sexuality, or they know what their sexuality is, but they're struggling with the backlash or the impact of that upon them. There's a bunch of really great charities and support groups that you can reach out to if you're struggling, or if you know somebody that's struggling. So places like Stonewall, which is super famous. There's a Manchester-based support group for bisexual people called BiPhoria. Amazing work. There's also the LGBT Foundation, who support people across the LGBT community. And also don't forget to check out places like Mind, because they have a lot of information to help support people if they're struggling with both their mental health and their sexuality. So finally, like I said before, love is love. Thank you so much for watching, and please do drop in any questions or comments or anything that you have in the comment box below. Don't forget to subscribe, and sending you all my love. Love you all. Bye.